So let's start with kind of an introductory presentation here about what GIS is to kind of give you guys a good starting point and handle on what we're going to be talking about today. So GIS is really all about geography, as the acronym kind of implies, Geographic Information Systems. And with geography, we're interested in what is where, why is it there, and really why is it important, or why do we care about it. Really interesting statistic is about 80% of all data has a spatial component. So although most of us think of data as being in a tabular database and pretty cryptic to look at, the majority of that data actually can be put on a map. And as you're starting to see probably more often these days with our smartphone applications and things like Google Maps and stuff like that, where you can find a lot of information from a map. So GIS is defined as a system of computer hardware and software, and really importantly, the personnel that are used to help manipulate, analyze, and present information that's tied to a spatial location. It's really commonly confused with GPS, even though they are complementary technologies, and GPS helps you find your location on the Earth. It's not really a GIS. GIS is much more than that. GIS is also not a static map or even a digital map. So our paper maps that we have in the drawer, even though they maybe could have been created with a GIS, they're not a GIS themselves. And even maps in digital format are generally not a GIS. And also GIS is not just software. As I mentioned, it's also the hardware and the people and also the information. All those things go together to make up a GIS. So a lot of people think of it as a really powerful method to visualize, manipulate, analyze, and display spatial data. And it can also be thought of smart maps that link to a database. So when you look at something like Google Maps and you're trying to find directions, it doesn't really come across as being a GIS. But when you click on a map and you click on a feature or a building, and it tells you what the address of that building is, and it shows you a picture, and it maybe tells you what restaurant is inside of it and how well that restaurant is rated, that's when you start to get into the world of GIS, is that this map is now telling you information, and it's not just pretty objects on the map, but there's lots of rich information behind those objects. So as we all know, databases are pretty hard to interpret looking at a table, but maps are really worth 1,000 words because they can present that information really clearly. And one of the powerful things about GIS is that it has the capacity to combine data from many different sources. So you could get a geology map from the USGS and download that and put it in. And then you could get some road data from the local transportation department and overlay that over on there. You could subscribe to a feed for live weather data that's going to show you where the radar, where the storm's coming. And you can overlay all that stuff all at once in a GIS. And really the sky's the limit. There's lots of different possibilities for how much you can combine. So GIS is really powerful in that way. So GIS data, it comes in two primary formats that we're going to work with today. The first format, and most common probably, is vector. And vector you can really just think of as points, lines, and polygons, shapes on a map that you can click on them and move them around and reshape them to your heart's desire. And those vector features are used to represent things in a GIS, like a polygon might be used to represent a house, or a line might be used to represent a fence, and a point might be used to represent a plant. So we're going to work with all those things today. And each one of those features in a GIS, besides its shape that you see on the map, has all that rich information behind it that can be highly variable and lots of different options for that. So in the case of a house, you might want to know the square footage, what type of house it is. It is a single family house, is it a multi-family house, and maybe what's the perimeter around the outside of that, what's the area of it. So lots of different information can be tied to that shape. And the other format that we're going to talk about and work with today is raster format, which can simply be thought as images or pictures, really. So the same way that you work with a digital photograph on your computer at home, that's just a raster image, and we're gonna work with those as well today. So in the case of starting up a project at your garden or landscape, GIS data can come from many different sources. It's really common for gardens to have scan or paper maps that they can scan in and then trace the features off of those maps and add those into your GIS. Another common format is CAD drawings or computer-aided drafting. It's pretty common to get as-built drawings from someone who's doing a construction project in CAD format. Non-spatial databases, so if you have a plant records database at your garden, you can bring all that information in your GIS and link it up with actual locations of plants on the map. GPS is a really popular way to be able to collect collection data. So you can take a GPS unit out and record the locations of things out in the field. And then field sampling, as I mentioned, using a mobile device and going out there, or just a clipboard even, and writing down attributes about things that you are interested out in the landscape, whether it's plants or some assets that you have on your property. You can record that information and add it to your GIS. And then remote sensing can commonly or easily be thought about as remote sensing is just gathering information about an object without touching it. So the most common formats that you may come across with remote sensing stuff is photographs. In the case of GIS, aerial photographs are really popular, being able to look down from above on the property you're interested in, and you can see lots of information from that, and we'll go over and work with that kind of data a lot today. And then finally, surveying is also a really popular way to get GIS data for your garden. You can either contract a surveyor to be able to collect that information for you, or actually get the equipment and do it yourself. So lots of different options for how to get data into your GIS. And another one, I guess that's not on this list, is downloading data from other sources. So there's lots of publicly available information on the internet, and as I mentioned, you can download those sources and combine them all together. So GIS is used in a wide variety of industries. Just about every aspect of business and government are using GIS these days. In the emergency services realm, police departments and fire departments use GIS for all sorts of different things. If you've ever looked inside a police car, they generally have that big computer monitor in there, and that usually has a GIS system that shows them a map of their city. Shows them where their other officers are, routes them to incidents that may be in progress, and things of that nature. In the environmental realm, GIS is used for environmental monitoring, so checking out, monitoring the status of wildlife and natural resources, and then for modeling, for actually being able to predict how things might change in the future. In the business world, it's used for lots of routing and delivery services. UPS is a real common example I like to use with that. They commonly use GIS to be able to route their delivery vehicles. So from point A to point B and then to point C in the most efficient and time-effective way, and keeping traffic in mind and avoiding that kind of holdup. In industry, it's used in all sorts of different facets of industry. Transportation, telecommunications, mining, oil and gas and pipelines, even healthcare, to optimize the use of hospital beds and things like that. In government, local, state, federal, all levels of government use it. The military especially uses it for training and strategic exercises, all sorts of different uses there. And then education too. The research community uses GIS all the time, and it's increasingly being used for teaching. It's a really nice way to be able to show people relationships between things in the natural world and be able to communicate information.